we are just looking for some fun. Mr. Fu, have a cigarette. The boss next to him handed him a cigarette attentively. Oh? Fu Nancheng did not refuse. He took the cigarette and put it between his thin lips. Scarlet flames jumped. Fu Nancheng took a puff of cigarette, then exhaled the smoke with a frown, looking very stylish as if he was being worshipped. One is my niece, the other is my wife. You want to have fun? He asked. Mr. Fu, I don't know. The man suddenly bumped into the man's deep eyes, and his slender feathers trembled in fear. At this time, Fu Nancheng stood up, walked to the drunk boss with a cigarette between his slender fingers, and then pressed the scarlet cigarette butt into the back of the boss's hand. Fu Nancheng pressed the cigarette butt in and twisted it fiercely. He raised his thin lips and smiled cruelly. Zhuxi stood aside and looked at him. Her heart skipped a beat. She said, Fu Nancheng, forget it. They didn't get any advantage. Let's go. The man's bones and joints were sharp and white, and the veins on his half-arm, which was exposed when his black shirt was rolled up, were clearly visible. The cold and hard lines made people feel intimidated. These people were tortured badly, and they were so scared that their bodies were shaking. Everyone wait for me outside. Got it, uncle. Fu Yingying pulled Zhuxi out. Arriving outside, Zhuxi looked at the girl in front of her and said, Ying, why are you working here? Are you short of money? Fu Yingying immediately said, Cici, actually I am in love. His name is Sun Yiming. He is very talented, but his family is poor and he can't afford to go to school. I want to help him. Zhuxi showed no expression and asked Fu Yingying, how to help? Fu Yingying was embarrassed. I wanted to help him pay for his tuition, but I was short of pocket money, so I came here to work to make up for it. Fu Yingying wanted to say something more, but then her cell phone rang. Fu Yingying put away her phone, and then she saw Zhuxi. Yingying, you... My boyfriend is looking for me, Cici. I'm sorry, I have to leave first. Fu Yingying waved to Zhuxi and left. Miss Su. Fu Yingying had left, and Wen Xiaoqian was standing in the corridor looking at Zhuxi. Mr. Wen? Wen Xiaoqian came to Zhuxi and said, Are Miss Su and Nancheng together? Wen Xiaoqian had already seen how fierce his second brother was now. His second brother never allowed other men to touch Zhuxi. Anyone who touched her would have bad luck. No, why do you ask? Because Nancheng really cares about you. After your grandmother got into trouble, Nancheng beat Zilin up. Zhuxi was stunned. She didn't know this. He beat Song Zilin? He hadn't told her any of this. She doesn't know. He actually did so much behind the scenes. But didn't he say he was just playing with her? It was a stormy night, and every word he said to humiliate her was still ringing in her ears. Fu Nancheng has mysophobia, and he was covered in dirt from torturing those men just now, so he went to deal with it. At this time, Wen Xiaoqian looked at her and said again, He went on a first date with you. He also asked us what girls like and made a guide to the amusement park for a long time. What? Was that his first time dating a girl? No wonder he was so angry afterwards. Zhuxi's heart was stirred. Wen Xiaoqian's words were like a stone thrown into the lake of her heart, which had originally calmed down. Now her heart was rippling with circles of ripples. At this time, a low and unhappy voice sounded. What are you talking about? Zhuxi looked up and saw Fu Nancheng coming back. Now he had his hands in his trouser pockets, and there were some water stains on his rolled-up sleeves. He looked against the light, frowning and looking at her and Wen Xiaoqian with displeasure. Wen Xiaoqian smiled and said, Nancheng, Miss Su and I didn't say anything. Why are you looking at me like that? Tonight he was wearing a black shirt and black trousers. 2 buttons of his shirt were open, revealing his delicate collarbone. Fu Nancheng's eyes fell on Zhuxi's little face. Zhuxi also looked at him. Mr. Wen didn't tell me anything. Zhuxi, come back to the old house with me today to see Mom. Oh, I was going back too. Soon they arrived at the Fu family's old house. The two walked into the living room. Fu Nancheng asked, Where's Madam? Is Madam not sick today? Madam was ill today, but was comforted by the young lady. She's sleeping upstairs now. Aunt Jo couldn't help but praise. Zhuxi? Fu Nancheng was surprised. He had been taking his mother abroad for treatment over the years. Although her condition had stabilized in the past 2 years, his mother would fall ill as long as there was any disturbance in the imperial capital. Once the disease breaks out, it's out of control. But today his mother was on the verge of falling ill but was pulled back by Zhuxi. Come on, let's go up too. I promise Mom that I'll stay here tonight. Fu Nancheng's tense face slowly softened. Now Aunt Zhou was full of praise for this young lady. Fu Nancheng curled his lips. There was a kind of magic about her, a kind of magic that bewitched people. Fu Nancheng's tall body stopped, then walked upstairs with his long legs and went straight to his room. Zhuxi behind him asked, "What happened to your mother's illness?" Of course, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. I just thought knowing the cause would help in managing her condition. Zhuxi didn't want to pry into other people's privacy, so she quickly added, I am an illegitimate child. They all thought I was the one who destroyed that happy family, but in fact, my mother was raped by her own brother-in-law when she was young. They had a very good relationship as sisters because my grandmother passed away early and the eldest sister is like a mother. And the elder sister never allowed anyone to bully the younger sister, so after that incident, the sisters broke up. My mother always felt that she was a sinner and attempted suicide several times. After she became pregnant with me, she tried every possible means to abort me, but the old lady locked her up and forced her to give birth to the child. My mother's mental state became worse and worse, and she became more and more crazy. He spoke these words in a very calm voice without any emotion, as if he was telling someone else's story. Fu Nancheng turned off the lights in the room. Life was very difficult for my mother and I until an aunt from an old family friend took me in. She is my benefactor. Zhuxi was shocked by the sudden blackout of the lights, and at that moment her small body collapsed. Fu Nancheng quickly raised his hand to support her body on his chest. Fu Nancheng turned off the lights in the room, and the night pearl suddenly shone brightly, illuminating the entire room. Do you like it? He asked. So beautiful. Why did he give her another gift? Zhuxi found that he was very deceptive because he would give her a gift every time he took her to bed. Zhuxi was a little confused. Her substitute mission had already ended, but because of Madame Fu, the two of them were tied together again. This luminous pearl was given to me by my benefactor. I used to suffer from severe insomnia and spent many nights watching it. Now I give it to you. Zhuxi looked at him, and she raised her hand in refusal. She immediately lifted her thin lips and said, "No, I can't." Fu Nancheng looked down at her and reached out to pinch her palm-sized face. The scars had just been removed, and she looked beautiful and delicate. He just held her face and looked at her, his eyes dark and hot. "Zhuxi, what do you think about living together for half a year?" Zhuxi's face was burning, unable to bear his mature gaze. Zhuxi felt weak all over. She felt that Fu Nancheng's heart was extremely warm. Zhuxi closed her eyes and thought, take it, take it. Now she didn't know where he put the jade pendant. Only by following him would she have a chance to slowly find it back. She followed him because of the jade pendant. Zhuxi looked at his cold and resolute face and said softly, "Yeah," she nodded. Seeing her pure appearance with brown hair and red lips, Fu Nancheng rolled his throat, then pinched her small waist with his big hand. Fu Nancheng paused, staring at her with deep, narrow eyes. The next second, the man lowered his head and a magnificent kiss had fallen. He kissed her very hard, and she frowned in discomfort. He slowly became gentle. The consideration and upbringing that permeated from a man's bones really loved the woman. Maybe she forgot to clench her teeth, allowing him to invade her violently, robbing her of her breath for a while. Fu Nancheng curled up his thin lips and let out a low laugh. He never denied that he liked her face. He had been looking at this face for a while, but he never seemed to get tired of it. His heart would be moved every time he saw it. He didn't know what other men were like, but he loved her beauty. Fu Nancheng propped up his hands, looked at her red lips that were kissed, and laughed hoarsely. "Zhuxi, this is our first day together." Zhuxi still didn't speak. Zhuxi looked at him with watery eyes and a hint of provocation. Preview next chapter. Soon a melodious cell phone ringtone rang. Fu Nancheng pinched her slender waist and said in a low voice, "Be quiet, do you want others to hear?" The cell phone in his pocket kept ringing. He took it out and saw that it was Su Qianru calling. Fu Nancheng was silent for a few seconds, then said, "Fragrant pills?" Zhuxi's face was red and her delicate body was pressed against the wall by his erect figure, unable to move. Although she agreed to follow him last night, she was mainly there to retrieve the jade pendant. Fu Nancheng pursed his lips and said into the phone, "I got it. Let my assistant talk to you if you have anything to say."